Good afternoon. I'm ready to call the meeting of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, PPACG, together. And I believe we have a quorum. Do we have any guests today to introduce? Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Danelle Miller. I'm a senior transportation planner here at PPACG. You might have seen me before, but I wanted to introduce Jared. He is our new public information officer.
So Jared's in the back there and we waved at him.
We also have hired a new office manager and a new senior accountant. So if you see Jared around, or if our new office manager is around, you'll probably see them in future meetings, and just wanted to let you know.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Well, today we have some consent items, the agenda and the minutes, and we can act on them combined. So do I have a motion to recommend approval?
I would make a motion. The only thing I would recommend is the advisory members. It has Rick Hoover still listed as Kono rep, and I think there's another person in there. That's on page 2 of our attachment.
Yeah, so at page 2.
Because I think our attendance list or roster list shows another person.
Yeah.
Chris,
It's
yes.
Welling Clark. Welling
Hi.
Clark.
Uh-oh, she knows me.
So we
I
just
think
need
we
to
all do, Welling.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we know you.
You leave an impression. So I think that just means that for future minutes, we need to update this pre-programmed spreadsheet for the attendance.
Okay.
Okay, so with that minor adjustment, do we have, oh, you made the motion? Did I get a
I'll
second?
second. Gary Sugar.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Patty Benger, I abstain as I was not present at the last meeting.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. Do we have any public comments that came in that we know about?
We do not have any public comments. However, I would like to point out there are a couple of seats that are expiring at the end of November. And so we'll get some more information out to folks soon regarding those.
So that's Sharon Brown, Michael Colomb. How do we say? I never say his name right.
And Patty Benger.
Oh, yes. Okay, so you will, do we need to have a, who takes action on that to?
As far as if they're at-large seats, we will need to put out an application. For those nominated by the towns and cities and counties, we will need to send a letter as staff to those individuals and those jurisdictions to replace those folks.
Yeah, or re-up them if they're not term limited.
Yes,
So there's no action for us.
not today.
Great,
No.
thank you. Anything else for public comment? And we don't have any information items listed on the agenda, so we can go right to action items. So 5A, Unified Planning Work Program Amendment number 2, Danelle Miller.
Yes.
So take it away, Danelle.
Okay, so you may remember that we just passed Amendment 1 to the Unified Planning Work Program. And that document, what it is, the Unified Planning Work Program, it's required by the federal government. And it documents the tasks that our planning department is going to do. Because our planning department acts as the metropolitan planning organization for the Colorado Springs metropolitan planning area. That's a federal requirement. We did just pass Amendment 1. However, we discovered a couple of opportunities to better use some funding sources. Specifically, there are toll credits available through CDOT that allows us to undertake a few projects without using any local dues or local matching money. So we have documented those in this document. We've also been tasked by our Transportation Advisory Committee with utilizing some federal funding, some federal transportation funding to purchase a traffic data service for the region. This is something that PPACG has done in the past, but not using this funding for it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next action item as well. And then the one other thing was the FHWA put out some planning emphasis areas late last year that we have been asked by FHWA to put a little bit more meat behind in how we were going to address those planning emphasis areas. And so we did that. I can certainly walk you through any changes you might be interested in. In the UPWP document, the changes are highlighted in yellow. We felt that made it a little bit easier to read than the previous amendment when we did an executive summary. Does anybody have any questions? Do you have any comments on the changes or anything related to the UPWP?
God bless your account.
We do have a comment online I'm going to display on the screen.
Thank you, Dolly. Yes.
Miss Shelley says, can you include a link to UPWP? And then since we're looking at comments, and also put a comment when we were talking about the expiration for seats as well.
Yes, I believe that has been updated and we just need to put the proper one in the packet.
And it looks like Shelley would also like to speak. She has her hand raised when you're ready.
Excellent, please.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. This is Shelley with the League of Women Voters. So if I remember last month when I called in and dialed in at 9 minutes after the start of the meeting, we were wrapping up and didn't have a chance to discuss this. And Amendment 1, we got an email, I think on August 31st, that it was going to be passed. With your regards to your amendments, my question is regarding the work element 615, that regional transportation environmental planning portion.
Yes.
Was there anything added to your amendment 2? I'm sorry, that's why I'm asking a link to that amendment.
No,
that
no
second
problem.
Amendment. Were there any changes? Because I understand that position's been vacant since last year. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, it has been.
And then later on in your work elements in that document, 610 to 616, it's supposed to be formatted to show the purpose, the expected products, and the schedule. There was nothing in Amendment 1 of that work element 614. Can you tell me why?
614. So we kept 614 element 614 in the UPWP so that it can cover additional transportation, environmental planning elements that may be undertaken by staff. But you are correct, we do not have an environmental planner on staff right now. We are splitting that work up currently among a couple of different people. And I know that our executive director has had some discussions with various people about the future of that role in the future. So honestly, at this point, we kept this in to cover potential work in the future.
Okay, so I guess when I'm reading the document, under the section of where it specifically breaks it down, and under those work elements from 610 to 616, There is literally nothing listed under 614, but all of the other ones have a very much a description about what you're doing, what your goals are, and there is nothing, not one single thing listed for 614. That kind of concerns me, I guess. All the other ones, if you go to the actual breakdown of,
Can you go to page 44, Dolly? Just a little bit up. Down. Right, so that work element 6.14. So this is what's in the UPWP currently for work element 614.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure.
It's page 34 of our handout,
Oh, yeah.
page 44 of the document, right?
Correct, yes, 44 of the full PDF.
Yeah, I did.
And I can certainly send this to you. Let me-
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, can you scroll up just a little bit for me? I'm sorry, down. I apologize. I apologize. I hate that. It confuses me every single time,
Up and down.
right?
We understand.
So in the original one that we got, the amendment 1,
Mhm.
I don't. Yeah, it was under that specific one, 614. It just did not have, there was information omitted on the amendment 1.
Okay,
And I just want to make sure that, again, everything around it, you had descriptions, you had purposes, you had tasks. And I am seeing this is a little different. I apologize. I'm not sure why I can't find my link, but
no, that's fine.
so this was not added right here. All of this was already in there.
It
'Cause you said
was,
private
yes.
stuff. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to find the document that I had a link to, because it was something that I specifically noted as to discuss with you regarding the omittance of that detailed information that I just was not getting in the. Thank you very much.
Okay,
I appreciate you looking it up.
no, absolutely. If there are any other comments, please feel free to ask. If not, what we're looking for today is a recommendation to the board that the board release or allow the staff to release this for public comment. That public comment period will be 30 days. And then following that public comment period, we will, of course, integrate any public comments and bring this back to this committee and the other committees prior to adoption. So you do have some time if you'd like to look through the document and provide any comments. You're welcome to send those directly to me.
Patty Benjer, I recommend the fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23 Unified Planning Work Program Amendment to be released for public comment.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I would second Ed Dills.
Thank you, Ed. Any comment? Any additional discussion? I don't think so.
Yeah, just to
yeah, go ahead.
clarify, we're approving that this go to the board for the board to release it. We don't have the authority to release it for
Correct.
public comment.
All, I guess, any other comment? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Whoops. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you. Then we'll move on to action item 5B. And that's Denelligan.
Yes. I get to talk a lot today. Yes, thank you. So as I mentioned in the last item, our Transportation Advisory Committee has asked PPACG to utilize some of the region's surface transportation block grant funding to secure a traffic data service for the 2023 calendar year. The entire region uses this data. It's at this point, the data that we have at a regional level is just personal traffic, light duty vehicle traffic and movement. What the TAC members would like for next year to try out is both light duty and then also commercial duty vehicles. What we would do at PPACG is basically bring together the jurisdictions and go through the procurement process for this data. It's used quite often, especially by the city of Colorado Springs and El Paso County. El Paso County is actually going through right now its transportation corridors plan. So it will be relying heavily on this kind of data. But what happens if we do it here at PPACG with the backing of our TAC and our board is that we can get the data for the entire region rather than, Colorado Springs spending close to the same amount of money for just data for the city or, just one jurisdiction taking that on. So it's really beneficial to, for instance, Manitou Springs has been using it quite a lot, and some of our other smaller jurisdictions. And this is again, surface transportation block funding. The total cost of the service is not to exceed $290,000. 240,091 of these dollars would be this surface transportation block grant funding. And then the remaining 49,909 would be local match. And that local match is not existing dues. That local match is a special amount of money set aside by the city of Colorado Springs and El Paso County specifically to purchase this data. And what we need from this group and eventually from our board of directors is a resolution that would allow the staff to undertake this procurement process. Because this is federal money, we felt it was very important that the board and our committees be involved in ensuring that the process is done correctly. Does anybody have any questions? It looks like Ed Zills, you have your hand raised.
I do. Would this study cover both ends, east and west of Highway 24? I realize population's much less than Colorado Springs, but commercial traffic is picking up in both of those areas, and I'd be curious.
It covers everything within our metropolitan planning area. So it doesn't necessarily cover it doesn't cover Park County, and it only covers part of Teller County. Because that's outside our TAC is technically only for our metropolitan planning area, if that makes sense.
Yeah, would it reach as far east as Calhan or Rama?
Yes.
Or just, okay.
Yes, it would include all of El Paso County and out to Woodland Park.
Okay.
It's from Raymond, that's what he's asking.
Yes.
Okay,
it
that
would.
answers what I needed. Thank you.
Question here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm familiar with this data. I just want to say we've used this in the past for neighborhood work and things like that to do traffic counts.
Mhm.
And I would be in favor of this because with COVID, that kind of screwed up all our traffic counts. So we're kind of getting back to normal, and this would allow you to go ahead and get the baseline. Now, this would be for fiscal year or calendar year 23?
Calendar year.
Calendar year 23. So we could then adjust it and see how well it compares with past history data.
Yes, and I think that's
Okay.
why El Paso County and the city of Colorado Springs are so excited about utilizing this data, because if they don't have access to data like this, they're reliant solely on, hand traffic counts, which are very costly, very timely. So this kind of allows them to have some financial benefits and some additional data.
Well, just to comment on that, what you're doing is you're going to provide a common database for everybody to use, so you don't have apples and oranges hook up with data, which is good.
Yes, yes,
Not the apples and oranges, but a common database is good.
yes. Patty Benger?
Thank you. Yes, this may seem obvious, but I just wanted to confirm that all of the data collected in the TAC jurisdiction, if this moves forward, that all of the data would also be shared with each of the PPACG communities that it serves?
Yes, all of the TAC members and whoever they would like to designate have access to or would have access to whatever services is purchased.
And I guess I mean each of the municipalities, so the
Yes.
cities and the counties and the towns, they would have access to that, their appropriate
Yes.
staff member.
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
it doesn't have to go through us. They can directly access that data. And Esh?
Yes, hi. Let's see here, where am I? Yes, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. This is Ann in Green Mountain Falls. I'm still just a little confused. The Tri-County study
Mhm.
that has been going on and almost finished. Will this be coordinated with that? Is this an effort to kind of cooperate with that and get more money? I too am concerned about the I-24 corridor up into the mountains. Green Mountain Falls, of course, is part of the MPO. And I know that a lot of road work that has been done often stops at the restaurant right there at the county line. So I still don't quite understand, if it's PPACG, why is it limited to El Paso County?
It's not limited to El Paso County. This data service would be available to anyone in the MPO boundary. The MPO boundary is slightly different because is slightly different than our Council of Governments boundary. And that's because our MPO and our MPO boundary is tied to the federal regulation for the Metropolitan Planning Organization, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I do understand, but just count it. Well, I guess that still would be helpful, because you'll see how much is coming up. So
we did talk quite a bit about the Tri-County study at the last board meeting because the final draft was approved.
Mhm.
And I can't recall if you were on that meeting, but there was a conversation about the potential for trying to acquire additional money or recurring funds, perhaps to redo or revisit the Tri-County study on a recurring basis. So that is a conversation that I think is happening. I don't have any outcomes from that yet.
Well, that's good. No, I didn't attend that, but I could ask our mayor. He goes. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And then I do have one comment in chat before we go forward.
Let me read
Could you
it.
read it out loud so that we don't have
yeah.
to squint to their.
Totally. So Shelley is just explaining, I'm having internet issues and trouble with you hearing me regarding UPWP work element 614. My concern is regarding the deliverables and schedule items for each of these are detailed Whereas the one for 614 regional transportation environmental planning is basic with nothing but ongoing and no mention of when you are going to hire at least a goal, stakeholder workshops, regional data documents, etc. My vote was nay on the update without more information in work element 614.
Okay. We will take that information back and talk with our staff and see if we can either get a better answer for you about why that appears the way it does, or if we can get some more information. But thank you for bringing that to our attention.
She said, thank you.
And on the resolution, if no one else has any questions, our proposed motion today is just to recommend that the Board of Directors adopt the resolution.
So do I have a motion?
I move to approve. This is Ann.
Welling Clark, second.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
I,
And opposed? Do I have any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Okay, for item 5C. I guess we're to now Miller again.
Yes. Okay, so this item is our transportation electrification infrastructure study adoption. And you might remember from CAC 2 months ago, I believe, that it used to be called a plan. We had some discussions with our board and with other folks and have renamed this document because the intent of the document really isn't to provide specific projects. It's really not to provide, a strict roadmap or anything like that. It doesn't really encompass what a plan should have in it. So we really felt study was a more fitting term for this document. And what the goal of this document really is to support those jurisdictions in our area that may be interested in looking into grant funding, or it could be other groups as well. It doesn't have to be a jurisdiction. It could be commercial entities or nonprofits, anyone who might be looking at electric vehicle charging infrastructure within our region. And it was very important to some of the people that we heard from that it really not be a prescriptive document, and it really should serve and its scope should be to be a reference and be a support document for those folks who might be looking for funding. We did receive several comments, which if you scroll down to 2 pages after this, we did have a few comments. And I can walk through specific comments if you'd like. A few were a bit outside of the scope of this document. A few were very interested in specific operational concerns, such as, staging at EV chargers or those kinds of things that would really be left to whoever's going to manage or operate these potential EV chargers in the future. We did try to at least address each of these comments in the document itself. Even if, for instance, one individual was very interested in other alternative fuels, specifically hydrogen. Yes, so we did actually add a little bit into the document that even though those alternative fuels are outside of the scope of this document, that they're worth our local agencies, it's worth their time to look into those other options. We did have a few comments about government funding going toward electric charging infrastructure and electrification and pushing that particular technology. So that was definitely something that we've heard, not only in this comment, but also during committee meetings. We did have a few people who were very knowledgeable about specific ranges, things like that. We did try to go into the document and either be very clear to source or to take out specifics where there are areas where technology changes might outdate the document very quickly. Let's see, a couple of other things. We did try to make sure that, for instance, the greenhouse gas goals stated in the document, we wanted to make sure that it was clear those were the state's goals. They weren't established by PPACG, and they're not limited to our area. We also had one particular comment that spoke quite a bit about the assumption, some of the assumptions made in a reference in a working paper that we referenced. So we did add some more meat to that information. We heard from a couple folks that they were interested in impacts to the electric grid. So we did find some references and kind of pulled some of that information in. And then we also we also tried to very clearly define, the objective and also in the final chapter, try to address the fact that, no, this isn't a strict document. There aren't projects associated with this particular document because that's not really the intent of this document. Again, I would be happy to walk you through any particular pieces of the document, any of the comments. If you have particular questions, I would be happy to answer them. And our intent here is to receive a motion that this document be recommended to the board for adoption at this time.
It looks like we do have Ed online with a question.
Thank you, Dolly.
Go ahead, Ed.
Yes, the question I have is the state or any other government agency doing any study similar to this? Is this redundant or is this something we're strictly doing on our own, or what's the background on that part?
There is a couple of state documents, and we tried to be careful to not be redundant of those or to actually pull from those. There are also some individual documents. For instance, the Colorado Springs, the city has an EV readiness plan. So we did not want to provide information or basically put work into something that the city has already invested in. That document is very detailed, has very clear, specific recommendations. So if you're interested in that, that's out there. The state of Colorado has it's called a NEVI plan. It's a National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Plan. And that document it was actually just approved, I think, last week. But that document is basically outlining how the state intends to spend the money related to the NEVI program that the federal government has set up. And that particular program is limited in our area, or the eligibility is limited in our area because the funding availability is only, basically you can only spend it on projects within a mile of a federally designated EV corridor. And right now, the only federally designated EV corridor in our region or in our Council of Governments region is I-25. We have heard from folks, both within our committees and within our region, that we would like to make some nominations for future roads or for future nominations, for example, US 24, we would like to nominate US 24 to be included in that list in the future. So they're aware, CDOT is aware that we have some interest in being involved in the future there. And then, of course, there are the CDOT greenhouse gas documents, which are tied to some of the EV requirements. There's a state EV plan. There's a state transit specific plan. There's also Colorado Springs MMT, Mountain Metro Transit, is starting its own zero emission vehicle plan. So there are several efforts, and we tried to be very careful to not duplicate any of those and to just pull in information, if that makes sense. Does that answer the question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a quick, oh, you had a question, go. My question was, maybe just to clarify, this document is meant to be a reference.
Yes.
It's not meant to be, an RFP or anything that is, here's what we're gonna do.
Yes.
It's reference material for people who are maybe putting together proposals to actually do something.
Yes. One of the things that we've found is when you are writing a grant proposal, there is often a question that says, is this project supported by a regional plan? And so having this allows some of those folks to say, check that box and say, yes, this is supported by a regional plan. In addition, we know that some of our local agencies don't really have large staffs. So giving them at least some references, at least some language that they can pull, some ideas for where they can go looking for information. The intent was to help those folks.
Thank you. And then also, is it in the form that we got, a form that we could share?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And it is available on our website as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Welling.
First of all, I want to say thank you for clarifying it, that this is actually more of a resource guideline. If you're
Yes.
looking at doing electrification, then here's the plan of what we're going to do. That is very helpful. I had some specific questions, and after you've just done some talking, it may be that you're taking numbers from the state, and I would have to, because I reverse engineer everything. Okay. And the comments were great. I was looking at that. One of the things I remember when I was on the CAC before, that was a statement made by staff, was a lot of our CO2 emissions come from states west of us and from overseas, China and India specifically. And a question that came to my mind immediately, with the state's goal of, it said 100% electric vehicles for light vehicles by 2050.
Yes.
What does that buy us? Because there is a figure 13 on page 100 talks about CO2 levels. How much will we drop those? Because I've studied into that, and 95% of all greenhouse gases is water. 3% is carbon and a fraction of that. So is that state numbers basically that you're following?
It is state numbers. And I do not believe I have seen a specific. I'll go back and take a look with some of our folks who are in the modeling.
Okay, no, that'd be great, because it was just a question of, if we go to 100% electric or non-gasoline combustion, what does that give us? Is it worth
Right.
the effort?
And it depends a lot on the assumptions. It
Right.
depends on how the electricity is generated. It depends on how many vehicles there are at that point in time, and what you would assume if those weren't electric vehicles, how much. So there's a lot of assumptions that go into that. And I don't think that I've actually seen a number put out by the
Okay.
state.
Okay, because I saw the parameters and assumptions would be very interesting.
Mhm.
I saw one comment about charging speed on the L3, and I don't know if the individual is saying that the numbers are actually faster or slower,
Mhm.
but at a 30,000 foot level, systems engineering level, when I'm looking at it, if I have all these gas stations and it takes me 5 minutes to say for a car to go into a pump, that means I can get 12 cars through at maximum capacity on a pump.
Mhm.
And if I have total EVs from an infrastructure standpoint, and it takes a lot longer to charge them, does that mean I've got to have a lot more charging stations than I have gas stations currently?
I think the intent for most folks that I have talked to is that most charging for residents would be done at a home.
At a home, right? So that wouldn't
Um,
affect that.
Right, so the majority of fast charging would likely
Mhm.
be used by people who are traveling, that kind of thing. The individual who made that comment was actually saying that speeds have gotten faster, and they're correct.
Okay.
That's true.
Good. Because I know the state said here they expect, they said in 2019, we have 24,000 EVs in the state. And by 2030, 940,000. And based off the numbers I saw, we in this county or in this MPO have about 1/5 to 1/6 of those vehicles. And if that was true, that means we're looking at in the neighborhood of about 150,000 EVs coming into the metropolitan district. Is PPAC working with the automobile industry to track it to see if that forecasting number is actually accurate?
We did actually speak with the Colorado Auto Dealers Association. They did give
Uh-huh.
us some information about recent trends and purchases. Whether or not this county will meet that goal,
It's on
I
the
don't
individual.
know.
Yeah.
From the folks that I've talked to or that our staff has talked to, it seems that the urban areas will be more likely to adopt EVs more quickly than rural, which
Mhm.
makes sense for a number of reasons. I don't know that anyone can give a guarantee that we're going to meet those goals that the state has sent. But I do know that the Colorado Auto Dealers Association folks that I talked to and that our staff talked to, they were seeing some increases in sales, and they were anticipating exponential growth in EV sales purely because a lot of the manufacturers are dedicated to going to EVs.
Good. But the bottom line is you're tagged in with the industry so they can give you up-to-date information.
Yes.
That's good because
Yes.
part of this is very similar to me from the SAP, the small area forecast, where you're trying to forecast in the future and then you measure it as you go.
Yes, yes, we
Okay.
do have access to some of that data, and some of that data is publicly available.
And I want to
Um,
compliment you too. On one of the pages I saw about the page 101, there was a comment about the lower income and about there's tax credits and some tax breaks, but they kind of go away in a while.
Mhm.
And to me, if you were looking at to push something forward, you would want to have what's available now and what might be coming down in the future. It was kind of buried in there, but that was good to know. The west side here is mostly a blue collar neighborhood. Okay, my neighborhood. And most people both parents work.
Mhm.
And so generally they can't afford electric. So I just don't know, is the state coming out with anything in the future or?
Not that I am aware of. As
Okay.
far as I'm aware of, the state benefits or the state incentives are phasing out. I do know that some of the utility companies have some incentives.
Mhm.
And the federal government has some incentives, but I have not heard anything about state incentives being
Okay.
renewed.
And one last question, I apologize for nitpicking or whatever. Is there a document out there or data about when most of this traffic, I'm assuming for electric, is local, going from home to business to store and back to home again,
Mhm.
not necessarily long-term vacation traveling? Does any entity higher up outside PPACG has an estimate of like, if we have a charging station here, here's what our throughput is for the number of vehicles we expect?
I don't know if that would be publicly available.
Okay.
I know that there are, several, commercial entities that have charging stations. I don't know that they are sharing their data. But I know that a lot of times, it's actually for instance, ChargePoint is a manufacturer operator of those charging stations. So they have a few charging stations in our area. I know that they have the ability to gather all of that data and make predictions about their business operations, but I don't know that that's publicly available or something that would be shared.
Okay, because I know any entity would need that from the standpoint of planning if they wanted to go that route, just to
Sure.
figure what they need for that
Sure.
infrastructure.
And I know that a lot of entities have actually worked with folks. I had a conversation actually with,
That's okay. I'm done. Thank you. No, it's, you were given a 10,000-pound piece of sausage and you had to make it look nice. Okay, I get it.
And then I do have a couple of comments in chat that I'd like to highlight, if that's okay.
Perfect.
I have Miss Taniza, which if I'm saying that wrong, please correct me. But in her chat, she said, I would be interested to know what is our electric grid's capability in Colorado, and if our electric infrastructure is capable to support EV charging, even if there is charging at home. And then, of course, right above that, Miss Patty shared a few resources that I did select with some information in regards to what y'all were talking about with the electrical vehicles and some of the information that is available if anybody's interested in looking at that.
Thank you, Dolly. Regarding the electric grid capability, yes, I understand. Yes, we did actually receive that comment from a few folks in our committees and through our BARD process. And my understanding is that the Colorado Springs Readiness Plan was developed in consultation with Colorado Springs Utilities. Of course, Colorado Springs Utilities doesn't service the entire COG area, but the Colorado Office of Energy is working in collaboration with the Colorado Department of Transportation and those various utility providers to kind of make sure that the infrastructure grid can handle these loads as they come online, or if they cannot, to identify those things. I don't have a particular document that the Colorado Energy Office has produced at this point, but I do know that they've been working on it. I do know that they've been in discussions.
Patty, you have a question?
Thank you. I just wanted to add that Colorado Springs Utilities is also developing our own electrification strategy plan, and it's not just for electric vehicles, but it's studying the impact of the trend of electrification for buildings and EVs and how our consumers are changing their habits and what that impact might be on our system. So that is something that we're working on internally. It's a long process. Probably in the next 2 years we'll have that complete, but that's something that we are planning, though we did also consult with the city, as Danelle had mentioned.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
And if there are no more questions, again, our goal here for CAC today was, of course, to answer any questions you may have. And if you are satisfied to receive a motion to recommend this document to the Board of Directors for adoption.
Hi, this is Shelley Roars. I move that we recommend adoption of the Transportation Electrification Infrastructure Study. Sorry, that's a lot to say, to the Board of Directors.
This is Carol Campbell. I'll second that.
Thank you,
Comment?
ladies.
Okay.
Have a comment?
And with regards to that, when this comes before the elected officials, I would recommend that you phrase it just like you did before. This is more of a resource document for people helping planning. It's not saying we will do this, it's to help them. And then that'll make it more acceptable.
Yes.
Palatable.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that recommendation.
All right. So all those in favor of the proposed motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Those opposed can signify by saying nay or. Thank you. The motion carries. Next item 5D. And lo and behold,
Yes.
Danelle's going to take that one too.
Thank you. We do have a lot of transportation things going on right now. So this is our congestion management process. This document is the first or one of the first steps toward building our long-range regional transportation plan, which is just in its beginning phases. Our 2050 long-range regional transportation plan, we intend to have it adopted in 2024. So we have quite a long process. This particular document was developed by PPACG staff in coordination with our Transportation Advisory Committee. So we relied heavily on those experts to help us out. We also had a consultant come in and help us with some of the particulars and some of the nuances because they had some background with these sorts of documents that was really beneficial to us. If you're not familiar with this process, our CMP is basically a regional approach to managing congestion. It's basically it is a process. It's not a plan. So it doesn't specifically tell people what road to follow or what steps to take. It is a process that is used in our long-range transportation plan to help provide a base for potential or eventual project selection. And this document is, of course, required by the federal government. It's based on the Federal Highway Administration's guidebook. And I don't know how far in depth you want to go into it. I would be happy to walk you through it. What we're looking for at this point in the process is a recommendation to the board to allow the staff to release this for public comment. Again, this public comment period will be 30 days. So you do have at least 45 days from now to read through it and make comments if you haven't had time to read through it. And it looks like Shelley has her hand raised. Shelley, do you have a comment or question?
Yes, ma'am. I do have a question regarding public comment.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a fun one. With regards to how we get the information out to people, because it seems to me that the same people are always commenting on the same thing, or I'm sorry, the same people are always commenting. How, because this one here, everybody's in traffic. I don't know about you guys, but for those of us in real estate and we travel from one end of the county to the other into Penrose, congestion's a problem. And, you know, for those of us kind of also looking at, you know, the roundabouts and how some smaller cities are kind of installing roundabouts instead of lights with regards to the environment and helping with congestion. It's very much a European kind of solution. How, I guess, can we do better at the public comment process is my ultimate question for you.
That
and
is a
involve more people.
great question. Traditionally, our public comment period or a public comment process for a document like this is that we do have a media release. We, of course, advertise our public comment period, both physically as required by law, but also digitally. We have it on our website. We, post in the Gazette and various other newspapers or other sources if that's warranted. So the LRTP as a whole has a public participation strategy. We haven't quite gotten to the spot where that public participation strategy has been completed yet, because this is an initial step and it's one of the more technical elements. This may not get as many comments on it as, say, later steps in the LRTP, if that makes sense. But yes, I do agree. And I do know that we as staff have been looking at what are potential ways to increase public involvement in our LRTP process and in our transportation processes overall. I don't have a lot of concrete examples for you at this point because we haven't quite gotten there yet.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like a follow-up on that, please, if that'd be all right, some different out-of-the-box thinking. 'Cause
Yes,
no
absolutely.
offense, those under the age of 60, maybe even 50, don't read the Gazette.
Yes.
So just my opinion.
Even some of us older than that, just go online.
I agree.
Amen.
In fact, our goal is, as long as if CDOT is able to provide us with some toll credits, we're actually hoping to hire a consultant with the sole goal of assisting us with public involvement and stakeholder outreach related to long-range transportation planning. So I think in the future, we will have some very concrete ways to better reach people.
Well, this is Miley. Something that is on our, in our wheelhouse is, as members of the CAC, it's incumbent on us to also spread the word. And so things like this, we should share with those that we know not only are interested, but maybe some that should be. And in organizations that we belong to and people that we know that this would impact. They might not be thinking about it, but you say, hey, this really impacts you. You were complaining about the traffic. Here, make your comments on this. So even though we're a teeny weeny group in the big picture of things, we can be part of spreading the word. And so and all topics that come across our desk, we should be sharing with our constituents, so to speak.
And we would be very happy for you to do that. We are also, of course, going to announce any public comment periods on our Facebook, our LinkedIn, our Twitter account, things like that. But yes, that's definitely something we have been in discussions about. How do we get people more involved?
Question, you probably are doing this. You're already reaching out to all the municipalities involved so they can then put it in their newsletters.
Yes.
Okay, I will make sure that my neighborhood board gets a copy of this and also some other neighborhood organizations. And I'd recommend Kona with their database to do the same thing just to get the word out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no further questions, I guess we can have a motion. We need a motion to recommend the Board of Directors release the congestion management process draft for public comment.
I motion we approve something that reduces congestion. No, motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Welling Clark, sorry.
Second, Ed Dills.
Ed Dill second. Thank you. Any additional comments? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? All the motion carries. Thank you all. Well, the next on the agenda is member discussion. Do I have comments, discussion from the members?
This
Yes.
is Gary Sugar. I
Go
would
ahead,
just
Gary.
be interested in a coming meeting. I don't know when are we going to see the next revision to the tip?
The full tip. The full transportation improvement program, we generally do it every 4 years. We did back-to-back ones just recently to better align with the state's statewide transportation improvement program. Our current tip was adopted in January, went into effect in July. I don't think we'll do another full tip until I believe 2025.
So the reason I'm asking the question, because I agree with Shelley that particularly I-25 is, there's almost not a time during the day where it's not stop and go traffic, particularly between Cimarron and Garden of the Gods. And the last time there was a plan to put HOV lanes and then that was pulled out. And I would like to know
Yes.
if we don't start planning now to add extra lanes to I-25, it's going to be in gridlock in the coming years. So I would like to see more done to improve I-25.
And that particular project, that was actually not part of the transportation improvement program. That was part of the 10-year plan, which is CDOT's 10-year plan. And you're absolutely correct. It was pulled by our board of directors. It is still on our list of prioritized projects. It is just not at this point assigned funding or potential funding. But yes, that is a comment I have heard on more than one occasion. So I appreciate the comment and we'll pass it along.
And then we do have another comment in chat from Shelley. She just wanted to make a note for us. Don't forget about a group picture.
Oh, I conveniently forgot about that. So do we need to schedule a meeting where everyone can come in and be here face to face?
We can take the picture off.
Yeah, otherwise we'll use whatever we find on the internet about you.
Right.
And to be fair, I've kind of been holding off on this because I knew that we were getting some new staff in and I knew that there might be some turnover and whatnot. So, but yes, if the CAC would like to have a photo, and I think that's a good idea.
So maybe can we plan for that for next month's meeting? Because then we're going to get into winter and it might not be convenient for some of you to get here.
I think that's a good idea.
So maybe, our one shot of having everyone show up would be the October meeting, which would be the last, let's see, I don't know. No Halloween cost.
That is scheduled for the 26th of October.
I have a comment. I'd just like to cue PPACG. The city of Colorado Springs planning is looking at some aspects of densification of population. And when they do that, but we don't add existing infrastructure because we don't have the space for that, is PPACG engaging with the city of Colorado Springs and other entities with regards to congestion management if we go to higher density?
Oh,
That's
dear.
a great question. It would fall under part of our long-range transportation plan. We do include land use in that plan. And we actually, again, have some money set aside, hopefully for an expert to come in specifically on land use. I have not actually been through a full long-range plan process, so I can't give you particulars, but I will bring that back to our staff and we'll have a chat about that.
Okay, no, that's great. I just wanted to raise it because what we're seeing is we're getting houses torn down, duplexes with 0 lot lines put in, so they double the density. But the parking has not increased and the road system hasn't increased. And so what does that, I'm not sure what that does to the congestion, but probably nothing for the better. So that's just one thing I wanted to bring up.
Any other member discussion?
Yeah, this is Gary Sugar. I have one more question. Can you explain the connection and how the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments works with Pikes Peak Regional Transit Authority? How do they interface?
Yes. So Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority is also housed within PPACG. It is separate staff members. They're funded separately. And the PPRTA works with the PPRTA jurisdictions. You have to be a member of the PPRTA to take part in that. So they have a separate board. They have a separate CAC. They have a separate process. Our PPACG transportation group fulfills the MPO role for our, I was hoping that was John because he would explain it so much better than I would. So the projects that are brought under the PPRTA will make it into the transportation improvement program if they're regionally significant or if there is federal funding assigned to them, because our role is really somewhat limited to federal funding and what funding we actually administer. So we don't, because of the funding and who pays them, our staff don't, like I can't just go work on the PPRTA stuff and PPRTA folks can't just come work on the transportation, but we do, we know each other, we can coordinate that way. And our jurisdictions, of course, our Transportation Advisory Committee folks, for example, are very involved in both the PPRTA and the PPACG. Does that help? Okay.
Thank you. Items for next CAC meeting. Okay.
It will be shorter next month, I promise.
Okay, so important thing, October 26th is our next meeting, and be here with bells on, with your smiling face, and we'll have a group picture. So that's coming, the upcoming event. And that might be our one and only chance to see you face to face before it gets too complicated. So if I have nothing else, if no one else has any comments, then I think we can adjourn the meeting at whatever it is, 4:08. Thank you. The meeting adjourned.
Thank you.